Loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, my God, my strength, and my Redeemer. Amen. So, what wonderful buildings! Jesus' disciple was impressed by the temple, by its size and its grandeur. Excuse me, I've got a cold. He may also have been impressed by the numbers of people going in and out, and by the commerce that was conducted in the courtyard. And for a peasant from Galilee, where grand buildings and overt riches were rare, this place must have been awe-inspiring. Sort of like when you walk up to our church, right? You know, we may be personally in awe of those people who have personal assets, material assets that we don't have. We value others and ourselves by how many possessions are there. We live in a society that seems to value individuals based upon things. Based upon things. And when we meet new people, we notice their attire. Nice sweater today. We notice their cars. And we notice their houses. And we tend to discount those who appear to have less than we do. We look kind of tacky today. It's okay, that's my wife. we seem to discount those who are unemployed, or those whose clothing is a little shabby, or those people who ride the bus. Appearance is really, really important to us. Somehow, someone whose language skills are less than ours is considered to be less intelligent, even if that skill deficit is because that person grew up speaking a different language. But what inspires us? What is it that inspires us to awe? I have to admit that I am plagued with church envy. I am. You know, I see large congregations who worship in spaces with choir lofts and ornate altars and multiple services. They have multiple meeting spaces other than the sanctuary, and they have big modern kitchens and you know, sometimes I just wish we had that. I wish we did. I wonder if our small space is a sign that somehow we are just not as good. Just not as good as those congregations that can afford a little luxury. Jesus' disciples must have felt kind of the same way. You know, when they looked at that temple. And yet Jesus said, you know what? The building is not going to last. You know, maybe Jesus was foretelling the revolt against the Romans, which resulted in the loss of the temple and the diaspora. Excuse me. It could have been a warning about the power of the Romans. And sometimes Christians interpret that it as meaning that the temple is a symbol of the old religion, and that Judaism would fall like the temple to be replaced by Christianity. You know, that interpretation, along with some interpretations of the crucifixion, has led to terrible, terrible acts of aggression against Jews. Even today. Even today. But maybe baby. Jesus was talking about what is important in life. What is important? He spoke of the labor pains that have to happen before the true church can be birthed. You know, certainly we've been through lots of labor pains throughout the history of Christianity. Lots of them. Early Christians were persecuted, even killed for their faith. And then Christians killed and persecuted others, Jews and Muslims and Native Americans and Africans, in order to convince them that they should become Christian. I guess that would convince me. I'm not sure. Anyway, but we continue to make war. We continue to make war based upon our faiths. This week. Bombings in Paris is an example of this misdirected belief that religion can be expanded or protected based upon violence. Based upon violence. And so the violence that Jesus described didn't end with the destruction of the temple. That violence continues. And the question is, when, how, why should we participate in it? When, how, why? How can we practice our own faith while protecting the rights of others to practice theirs? I have to admit, I don't know how to make that happen. I don't know. What I do know is that it can't be about making our church, our little MCC, or our religion or our denomination grow by demeaning other people or by killing them. We can't do that. Somehow, we're called to live in the way that Jesus asks us to live. Somehow, we're called to be the people that Jesus called us to be. Somehow, the Church of Christ has to be a beacon for those who are seeking a place of peace. So, we're approaching the week when we celebrate Thanksgiving. That would be next week, in case you weren't aware. Unless you're Canadian. Then you missed it, yeah. It's about the immigrant. It's about considering why that holiday happens. It's about the immigrants who survived that first year in a new and dangerous place. But we also, at the same time, we have to consider the harm that those people did to the original occupants of the land. We need to be thankful for what we have, and yet we need to remember what it took to obtain that largesse. We need to celebrate the harvest, and we need to remember the work that it took to make that food grow. We need to accept that we are not without sin. But that we strive, that we work to be without sin. So this week you're going to start buying turkeys, right? And thinking about who's going to come to dinner. And who makes the best pumpkin pie. As you start thinking about those things, think about the people who will not have Thanksgiving dinner. Think about the people who don't have any place to go. Think about the blessings that we have. Even those of us who have a small space. Even those of us who have to sort of scrimp by every month. Even those of us who go to the shelter to have dinner once in a while. We have a lot. We have a lot. So remember that you are blessed. You are blessed, every one of you. And work a little bit to help someone else recognize the blessings. Amen?
Amen.